Mic Drop Moments is sponsored by Grow Radio. Want to launch your own podcast? Grow Radio are here to help. Grow Radio has launched and supported countless podcasts, and they'd love to do the same for you. Just hit record and they'll handle the rest. No editing stress, no technical faff, just a great podcast released when you want. Need a little extra support? Grow Radio's workshops and courses make getting started easy. Let's bring your podcast to life. Message Grow Radio on social media or reach out to Gary Jones, the founder of Grow Radio. Let's make this happen. Today I'm chatting with Claire Vowell. Claire, would you like to introduce yourself to the audience?
Yes, of course. I am a psychologist and coach, and I specialise in high performance. I work with a range of entrepreneurs and senior leaders, helping them really to redefine success, overcome limiting beliefs, and make sure they can unlock their potential, all without burning out. Always really important to look at the sort of stress management and burnout piece as well with this sort of high performers.
Yeah, and I'm just going to say at the start, we have got a special guest here with us today. Your cat has decided to sit on your knee. What's his name?
This is Archie.
Well, Archie will be joining us quietly, having cuddles while we're chatting this morning. My dog is in the background as usual. He's promised to be on his best behaviour.
Never believe them.
So I love pets are always welcome on my podcast. I know that we've had a brief chat before we've come on to the recording, and you talked a lot about your transitions and things, how you've moved from one area to another. Just talk us a little bit through your story, through your background from traveling. I mean, that is something I never got the chance to do, and I'm doing now. But a lot of people went traveling in their 20s. So what exciting things did you do, and why did you choose to go traveling at that stage?
Yeah, I missed the gap year train, I suppose, before university. I didn't do it. I'm not sure. I don't think anyone else in my family had even been to university, let alone had a gap year. So it just wasn't a thing for us. But I've always loved traveling and heard all these people through my early 20s that had these amazing adventures, and hit a point where I was slightly questioning, I guess, my next move career-wise. Must have been late 20s, and managed to convince my sister that we should just ditch the jobs, pack a rucksack and go off to South and Central America for a year. So that's what we did. And she was my partner in crime, and off we went. So we did most of the countries in South America and Central America and Mexico.
Wow, and that's a brave thing to do, because that's not always the safest region to go to. And I would imagine then as well, it probably wasn't safe. And obviously you went with your sister. Did you have any scary times or times when you thought, oh, we need to be a bit careful here?
There was definitely quite a few, and we actually didn't even take mobile phones with us. So we were out of contact. It was go and find internet cafes, and obviously trusting the old Lonely Planet. I mean, it feels like dinosaur ages. It feels prehistoric, doesn't it, to be traveling without a mobile phone and Google Maps and all the rest of it. So there were plenty of times and plenty of bickering when we got lost or found ourselves in some pretty dodgy places in Mexico. I remember we decided to stay in a motel. I think we're in a town that didn't have a youth hostel. We mainly were staying in hostels, and discovered quite quickly that hostel was obviously used for other activities than backpackers visiting the sites. So that was a good one. We were terrified. I remember we moved all the furniture against the door. We were like, oh my God, what have we done? Where are we?
Very brave thing to do. So you came back from your traveling, and what did you do next?
I was at the time, so I haven't always been a psychologist. I actually first thought about being a psychologist when I was choosing university, but was put off. I remember being put off because I was told there was a lot of stats involved. To fact, there was a lot of stats involved, but I definitely had my own confidence issues throughout. And I had this absolute belief that I was bad at maths. Founded on nothing, A-star maths. But I had this belief I couldn't do it, and I wouldn't be able to do the stats, wouldn't be able to do the course. So left psychology there. I had a business degree and moved into corporate comms. So before I went traveling, and then for a short period after I went traveling, I was working corporate comms, working for big brands, trying to focus on what we were calling then marketing with a mission, and working again what was then called CSO and sustainability, and trying to make sure that the work I was doing was meaningful to a point. So I went back. I think I was freelancing when I went back after traveling. I was consulting, freelancing, and spent a few more years doing that, and then latterly went to work in-house at Ernst & Young, doing corporate comms, global corporate comms there. And then that was the point. So it wasn't directly related to traveling, but it was another big transition point where I decided I needed to do something different. I had a really successful career in comms, really enjoyed it, some amazing opportunities to travel, work with huge brands, great people, but there was something missing. And I really was at that point thinking, what I want something more meaningful where I can feel I'm making more of a difference. And of course, the sort of psychology light goes back on. Okay. I wonder if maybe it's too late, maybe it's I've missed the boat on that one. But went away and researched it and found there was a sort of master's course, which is a bit like, I think they sort of describe it a bit like the law conversion course you can do, where you've done a different degree and then you do a 1-year master's, which kind of brings you up to speed. So I thought, that's great. It's a big decision, but I'll go and do this 1-year master's and then I'll be a psychologist and it will all be great. So I quit the job, which is a great job, and it was considered not the smartest decision by various people around me. I was determined this is what I was going to do. Then found out quite quickly that actually the masters would only get you so far, and what you really needed to be a practitioner psychologist in the UK was a doctorate. And these doctorates are really difficult to get onto. It's not just a choice to tick a box, fill in the form. These are highly competitive. But I decided, well, if I'm so far down this road, that's what I'll do. So I did all the work. I did my master's and that went really well. Really enjoyed it. And then did all the work experience and bits and bobs of additional qualifications I needed to get onto the doctoral course, and chose to do that, which was amazing. A couple of unexpected, I wouldn't say, I nearly said bumps in the road, but it wouldn't be quite right. I had both my children during the course of my doctorate.
Literal bumps then.
Literal bumps. Yeah, maybe that's where my brain was going with it. Yeah, so that was my first year. I did my first year pregnant with my eldest, and then took a year out when she was born. She was conveniently born in September, which is fits great for the academic year. Had her, which was lovely. Then went back. I had to go back part-time for the doctoral course was extremely demanding. It's a practitioner psychologist course. So you do clinical placements, clinical training, you're seeing clients one-to-one, but you also are doing your academic side of things as well. So you have exams and coursework and you have to do a thesis. So it's very demanding, very much a full-time endeavor. And I just couldn't do it with I guess she was a sort of young baby at the time, because it would have meant full-time nursery, which I wasn't prepared financially or emotionally to do at that point. So that was fine. I said, well, I'll split it over 2 years. I'll go back part-time. Did 1 year, great. 2nd year, pregnant.
I bet your tutors and things and your assessors loved you.
So it just was a slightly more drawn out process than it might have been. But yeah, great. And I mean, it's an additional challenge. We all know doing anything with kids other than being a full-time mum is a challenge. So it was tough, but we get through these things, don't we?
Do you think that affected you? Because I mean, we talk about baby brain and things like that, but being a mum of 2 small children and doing a doctorate, did that knock your confidence, or did you have any sort of setbacks or fears that maybe this is somebody telling me not to do this or anything like that? Or were you so determined?
I was pretty determined by that point. I'd left the career. I'd invested a lot of time, energy, and money. This was happening. It was interesting because I've always struggled with perfectionist traits. And again, it's something I work with. Often we work with some of the things that have challenged us, don't we, with our clients. And this one was, I had to really learn what good enough meant. I couldn't. I had very limited time to complete things like coursework, revise for exams. So the academic work, I very much had to lean into what I now understand about perfectionism and accepting that there would be limits and really understanding what good enough meant. And it wasn't perfect. It definitely wasn't perfect. So it was quite helpful in a way, but it definitely challenged me in that way. I wasn't able to give 110% to the course, which I might have wanted to do.
Do you find as women, we try and give 110% when we really should be accepting? I think this is a huge mindset issue anyway. I think as women, often we say, well, we can't do that because we can't give it 110%. So we tend to hold ourselves back. Whereas actually, 80% or 70% is good enough in a lot of cases. We don't have to tick the boxes. Do you think that along those lines, or do you think it's something else that comes into play?
I think we can take two different routes, actually. I think either we hold ourselves back and say, if I can't be perfect, I'm not going to do it at all, or we burn ourselves out. And I see both happening, actually. So, yes, we definitely have a tendency to hold ourselves back. I mean, there's research around going for jobs that shows that men will go for a job when they fulfill 30% of the criteria, whereas women will only go for it if they can tick all of the boxes. So it's definitely something that we see more in women. But the perfectionism, when I'm working with perfectionism now, it's just as often linked with stress, burnout, because we drive ourselves into the ground sometimes. We're trying so hard to be the best we possibly can, we lose sight of good enough. And it's a big piece of work that I do with clients, is understanding actually what is good enough and why are we driving ourselves to these sort of relentless standards, and criticizing ourselves if we don't meet them, which inevitably we don't always.
Is it comparisonitis, do you think, or is it more we're beating ourselves up against ourselves and our own expectations?
It can be quite complicated. Comparisonitis definitely comes into it, and comparison is generally not it doesn't usually end well. When I talk about comparison, I say if you're going to look at other people and what they're doing, okay, by all means do that. And we're bombarded, aren't we, with the emails we get from people, social media, all the rest of it. And it can be helpful, but only if we're looking with a view to inspiration and not to criticizing ourselves or beating ourselves up. Perfectionism tends to be pretty deeply rooted when we actually look at it. And it's not just as simple as saying to someone, well, don't work as hard, do less, do something less. It tends to be very deeply linked to our own self-esteem, self-belief, very much related to beliefs around when you really start to dig down through the layers. It's very often linked to I'm the deepest core belief of I'm only lovable if I'm perfect. And this comes from very early messages. So it comes from early experiences in childhood. Sometimes that's through very critical parents or caregivers that really do have exacting standards and expect a certain level of academic achievement or performance or whatever it might be. Interestingly, it can also come from people who've had a really lovely upbringing, but their identity has become attached to performance. So it can come from families where there's been an awful lot of praise of performance and achievement, which is obviously meant with the absolute best of intentions. And we all very naturally do that. We're all about celebrating success. But that can mean that our identity becomes tied to I'm only lovable if I'm achieving, I'm only lovable if I'm perfect.
Yeah. So that sort of reward and that celebration in some circumstances, maybe in younger people, there's high expectations now of young people as well, very academically driven. And I'm a huge advocate for practical experience in schools, in universities and things like that. They don't get the soft skills that they need in business and entrepreneurialism and things like that. So they're very conditioned along this academic route. So I'm assuming you got your doctorate.
I did, by hook or by crook.
And how did you then transition into what you do now?
Yeah, so after getting my doctorate, I had been working in the NHS through my training anyway. So I did NHS work and some private practice. I'd worked in various different places along the way, from addictions. I've worked in children and youth services, that kind of thing. I had another one of my moments where I thought, hang on a minute, I'm not sure about this one-to-one work. Is there something else out there? And I was very interested at the time, I still am very interested at the time, in advancements in technology and what's happening in digital mental health. So I decided to go and work for a tech startup, working as their psychology lead. So that was all about helping them, working with software engineers and working with a very big team to create apps and website-based products that would support mental health. So the first job I went into there was more on the sort of mental well-being side of things. So looking at how we translate in-person therapy into an app, self-guided exercises and interventions that people can do on their mobile phone. So I worked there, which was brilliant, very interesting, very steep learning curve for somebody who is not naturally tech savvy, learning what felt like a whole new language, working with the software engineers there. And then I went to work for a different company, which was doing similar things, an amazing company working at the absolute sort of forefront of AI in mental health. So this was an AI company, tech startup AI company, and we were working on chatbots. And we worked sold into the NHS, but also other streams as well. And that was a very interesting role. We were working with LLMs before people knew what they were. This was before the launch, before the public launch of ChatGPT. So that again was an incredible job. I was working with such bright people, working in really groundbreaking stuff, and really what I'd been looking for was impacting hundreds of thousands of people, potential to benefit hundreds of thousands of people when you've got this, app in your pocket that can actually support your mental health. So I loved it. It was amazing. It was everything I wanted on paper. I had a senior leadership role. We were doing such exciting things, working with the absolute best and the brightest in the industry. But it was very fast moving, very hardworking, very high expectations. And it just wasn't compatible with a young family. So I had to, another moment when I realized that actually, it's a bit like when I decided to retrain to be a psychologist, things weren't feeling quite right. I knew that it wasn't really values aligned. It wasn't really fitting with my priorities. And my priorities will always be my girls. But at that point, I started to realize that I wasn't putting them first. I was so busy and so stressed with the job that I was not being able to, I wasn't able to show up as the mum I wanted to be, I would say, which is really sad. And I still feel quite guilty about, frankly. But I recognized it quickly enough that something had to give. So I decided to leave that job and go back into self-employment. And here we are now. So there's been a few different sort of twists and turns along the way there. But this is where I am now. And I think, as many solopreneurs would say, I'm pretty sure I'm unemployable now. so here we stay.
I say that regularly, and it's interesting what you say about putting all the hours in and realizing that you weren't there for the girls how you wanted to be. But we do that with the best intentions to provide everything we want to for our families. And I did exactly the same. I was in the corporate world. I got two young boys. I was bringing them up on my own. And I suddenly hit that point where I thought, I've missed so much. And you can never get that back.
Yeah.
But you can't change things, but you can look back and change things moving forward. But do you think women more than men tend to beat themselves up about that? Somebody once said to me, you can have it all, but you can't have it all at once. And I was stepping into the self-employed world. If we channel it in the right way, we almost can have it all, because we can have the best of doing what we love the best, but also be there for our families, be there to support the people, and spend time doing stuff that we want to do outside of the working world. How difficult do you think, especially senior leaders that you're working with, when they're trapped in that, on that, what I call the corporate hamster wheel, and the measuring of the guilt and the sort of, can I go out on my own? Am I good enough to do it on my own? What's the best route for people to get over that mindset, over that sort of, those beliefs that they might be good enough to go out on their own?
It all starts with pausing to reflect on your values and your priorities, and actually then starting to challenge your assumptions. And it's not only women, actually. So I think there's two sort of parts to it. I'm thinking about a guy I'm working with at the moment who is very senior leadership, very successful, and he feels a lot of pressure because he's the main breadwinner in the family, and they have a lovely lifestyle and all the rest of it. And he says, well, he's very stressed, very burnt out, but he says, I've got to stay. I definitely do want to leave, but I've got to be here for at least the next 5 years. Yeah. And I said to him, do you? Why? And he said, well, because I've got to earn this money because of this. I said, okay, and what would happen if you didn't? Oh, well, we couldn't afford this holiday, this and this. And I said, but what else could you do? So, but I've always wanted to move to the country and do this and do that. I said, okay. So now we're thinking about options, aren't we? So it's about that pause and reflect. It's about challenging yourself. It's about thinking outside the box. It's about thinking, if money was no option, what would I be prioritizing? What is important to me? And I think very quickly, as you did, as I did, as my client would say as well, very quickly you start thinking, hang on a minute, actually, yes, the money provides us with freedom and lifestyle and all the rest of it. But what's important to me is being there for my child's nativity play, harvest festival, whatever it might be. Okay, so if that's what I really want to do, then I need to do something about this. I think do women feel more guilty about it? Possibly. I think there are more kind of touch points where women are expected to do the childcare, to be there at the school gate, that kind of thing. I think things have changed a lot. I see things changed enormously for the better with COVID and with more men working from home. When you go to my kids are primary school age, and you now see as almost as many dads as mums at the school
Yeah.
gates. And that's different to how it was pre-COVID. That's really changed. So things have moved. I think I'm not sure because I see a lot of men really struggle to leave those big corporate roles. Their identity is tied to the success, possibly in a way that women find almost easier to disentangle from because they also have such a strong identity as mum.
Yeah, and I think women are used to taking the career breaks more often than not to
Yeah, good
take
point.
a caring responsibility, whether that's having children or caring for relatives or whatever that be. We're more conditioned to taking those career breaks where
Mm.
they get their 2 weeks paternity leave, and very few take that shared parental leave. Few. But as you say, dads at the school gates, I pick my grandson up once a week, and I would say a third of the playground is full of
Yeah,
dads
yeah.
in their shorts. So they're obviously working from home. They're not employed, and some of them are house dads, and that's more acceptable.
Amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. But no, I have seen that change, and I haven't really reflected on that until you just mentioned it. Actually,
Mm.
that is very different to what it used to be, with the
Yeah.
odd token dad standing on his own, looking a bit out of place.
Looking awkward, yeah.
Yeah, now that there's a whole community of dads in the playground, which I think is a wonderful thing to see. You've had some amazing transitions through your journey, and obviously I can tell you love what you're doing now. If
Mm,
you were to, I always ask my guests to leave my audience with a top tip piece of advice or something, what I call your mic drop moment.
mm.
What would you want to leave the audience with?
Oh, okay. So I would say we've touched on this idea around limiting beliefs, and it's a big part of the work I do, whether that's in perfectionism, I do lots of work with imposter syndrome. The idea about beliefs can hold us back, stop us from achieving our potential. So I would say for me, the biggest piece of advice I could give, or something to mull over, is the fact that when we drill down, we understand that beliefs are really just stories we tell ourselves. Now, if beliefs are just stories, that means we get to rewrite them. We can change our stories, we can rewrite our narrative, and we can overcome those limiting beliefs.
Absolutely love that. We can rewrite our own stories. Absolutely love it. What a wonderful, poignant mic drop moment to leave us on. Claire, it's been absolutely fantastic chatting to you. We will share your links in the show notes. Today, I've been chatting with Claire Vowell. Thank you.
Thank you.